So when we first come onto a site to talk to people about their home and the home inspection, how we're going to perform that, there are certain things in the flow of a house and how we want to do the inspection, because basically we want to boil everything down. So when we want to start with the exteriors. The first thing that we want to talk to people about when we get on site is the process of why and how we're looking at it. So on the exteriors, we start with the roof, the gutters, the windows, the siding, the ventilation, and the vegetation around the house. So when we talk about the roof, certain things about roofs, there's different types of roofs. Naturally, when you drive down the street, you'll see flat roofs, pitched roofs, steep roofs, and things of that nature. You'll see shingles on the roof, or you may see cedar shakes on the roof, or different types of products that are on the roof surface. So that's important to understand what type of product that we're actually dealing with. Whereas, for example, we'll start with cedar. Okay, so you'll see a lot of cedar shake roofs here. So cedar shake roofs, typically what we're looking for there is the deterioration of that roofing shingle, the shake. It's called the shake. And so how thick the butt is, the butt end of that, kind of gives us an indication of how many years that should theoretically expect to last in a lifetime. So you'll have really thick ones, which we don't see much anymore. Those are called a 40-year butt surface. Typically what we're seeing right now is 20-year types of cedar shake roofs. So the maintenance issue with cedar shake roofs is that what we're talking to people about is the maintenance of that. A lot of times we'll look at them and things, again, out of sight, out of mind. It doesn't leak yet, right? And so we don't typically address the situation until it starts leaking. But what you're looking for on a cedar shake roof is, you're most certainly typically here where we live in the Northwest and other areas, our south side exposure to the equinox where your sun is positioned. The south side of your house is going to get the brunt of the weather. Good, bad, indifferent. For the most part, all of our bad or good weather comes out of the south. So we want to look at that area really heavily, not that we're dismissing any other areas, but in the context of that, what we're looking for on those shakes is we're looking for curling or flipping, or the shakes are lifting up and things of that nature, which basically means they're starting to wear. Cedar shake roof, exactly what it is. It's a cedar shake, and it's wood. And so when they're first put on, they have an oil penetrant that's typically been applied to that roof a lot of times. Sometimes it's just raw shakes. And so the visual appearance, you can most certainly see that with a new roof, it looks new. As it starts to age and it starts to weather, the roof looks gray and things of that nature. So the maintenance issue of those types of roofs, so we tell people you want to service that roof about every 4 to 6 years. In other words, have a professional company come out, pressure wash the roof. Now, to speak of pressure washing, there's 2 types of pressure washing systems. So the types of pressure washers that roofing companies use to clean your roof is not the same type of pressure washer that you use for your driveway typically. So they're either high volume and low pressure, or high pressure and low volume. So as you as a homeowner, you probably wouldn't want to go up there with your pressure washer for your driveway, meaning that it's the same as what they would use for a cedar shake roof in theory. So basically what they do is when they go up there and clean the roof, they're getting all the debris off. What they're also should be looking for, and this is questions that you'll want to ask this company when they come out and give you a bid or talk to you about that, is what are they going to do when they're up there? In other words, they're going to take out the bad shakes. So they're going to be walking the entire roof. They'll typically have corker shoes or spiked shoes on and a harness and that type of stuff. So they'll be able to physically walk the entire roof safely, right? So because of that, they'll be able to find and detect any bad shakes that are up there. So they'll take those out and they'll put in new shakes with that. Sometimes they'll also put in what we call slippers, which are just a piece of metal. Sometimes there may be just a little gap or something like that that doesn't warrant a new shake, but they'll put in a slipper, a piece of metal, and basically covers that area. But for the most part, they'll be putting in new shakes. So after they've cleaned the roof, then you want to have it treated. See, if you don't put any chemical treatment back in the cedar shake, over time it will deteriorate. If you do nothing at all with the cedar shake roof, over the years of experience that I have, over 21 years, I will tell you that most cedar shake roofs will not last beyond 12 years. At 12 years, you're actually looking to put a brand new roof on. So because of that, it's imperative that every 4 to 6 years, you have the roof cleaned, treated, and repaired. So the cleaning and the repair is one thing, but they typically will not treat the roof the same day that they've cleaned it. One, because it's wet. What they want to do is come back within 3 to 5 days or a week later after the roof has had a chance to dry off. Then they'll come back in, excuse me, with an oil penetrant, and they'll actually treat the roof. So by treating the roof with an oil penetrant, they're actually putting nutrients back into the cedar shake to, again, help it repel water and weather and that type of thing. So that's a cedar shake roof. Then we have composition roofs, where you'll have a pitched roof and you'll have a composition shingle roof. We have roofs, composition shingle, they're asphalt shingles, and basically what they have is granulated impregnation on top of the shingle. And the thickness of that shingle basically predicates the age, life expectancy of that. You'll have just a basic 20-year composition shingle roof. You'll have 25-year shingle roofs. You'll have 30s. You'll have 40s. And then you'll have 50-year presidential series types of roofs. So all that basically is predicated on how long that roof is designed to last. And so sometimes it's better to spend a little bit more money than you planned than a little less than you should have. So as a consumer, I would tell that person, yes, you can put a 20-year roof on there, but for an extra maybe $1,000, right, you can upgrade that to a 30 or a 40-year roof. So you want to negotiate with the roofing company. You want to talk to them about upgrading the type and the quality of the shingle, so you have less to do with that roof surface. When you have a shingle type of roof like that, composition shingle roof, the less you're on the roof, actually the better it is for the roof. You're not walking on the roof, you're not wearing and tearing the granulations off of the shingles, those types of things. So the less that you're on that roof, the better it is. Sometimes also in manufacturing, they will actually have, within that granulation, they'll actually have zinc crystallization in the roof. So you don't see a lot of moss or mildew growth built up on these types of roofs over time as well. If you do have moss or mildew growth and that type of stuff on there, again, the type of pressure washer, whether low volume or high pressure, or low pressure and high volume type of roof, you want to be cognizant and aware of that. You just don't want to get up there and get too close to the roof surface, because a pressure washer, because of the pressure and the volume of the water, it will rip or tear the shingle if you get too close to it. So the treatment of that kind of sounds odd, but there's all types of treatments that you can go to the store and you can buy, and you'll look at the packaging, and it's supposed to do something with that moss or that growth on the roof. Although, if you use simple white vinegar, and it's well proven that white vinegar basically just in its raw format, if you spray that on your roof and let it set up for about a 3 to 4 day period of time, that vinegar will actually neutralize the pH of the algae. And over about 3 or 4 day period of time, now when you go up there with a pressure washer or that type of thing, you'll be able to basically that stuff will just come right off, right? So that's really about all you need to do to be on the roof surface as far as the cleaning of it. What you want to do also as a homeowner, especially during times when we have in the fall, when the leaves are starting to fall and that types of things, you'll want to keep an eye on what we call the valleys, is where two roof lines come together and create a valley. You want to keep those valleys clean. If you have debris, leaves and limbs and things like that on your roof, and especially when they get to the valley area, if we don't clean that out, then the water that's coming off of the roof surface at that time coming to that valley could dam up behind there. And so when it dams up, it could roll back up underneath of the shingles and then back into your attic areas. And you would never know it until basically either you got in the attic and saw that you had a leak, and or one day your wife or significant other says, honey, there's a roof leak and it's coming through the ceiling of the living room right now. So you want to be cognizant about keeping the roof surface clean. Cleaning a roof surface, if it's just debris and things like that, you can go up there with a light broom, clean that type of stuff off, a blower, backpack blower, handheld blower, and just basically clean the roof and keep that roof surface clean. If it's allowable, based on our safety considerations, so most home inspectors, we do not harness up. In other words, we don't get harness equipment on and tie off to a, let's say, an extremely steep pitched roof to get up there and look at it. Safety is imperative. So as I've been in the business a long period of time, I've been very blessed only to fall off a roof one time. That's all it takes, is one time to fall off of them. So with that being said, your inspector may say, well, I can't get on the roof to visually look at the surface of the roof. So experience sometimes tells us that the roof looks good. The other thing about inspecting a roof is a good pair of binoculars. If there are areas that we need to see, and basically sometimes that means stepping back away from the house. It could be 25, 50 yards away from the house, 100 yards back up the street, down the street, to try to get a good visual representation of the roof is what it's showing us. And a good pair of binoculars, your inspector should have a good pair of binoculars to be able to see things on the roof that we're looking for. One of the biggest things that we see with roofs a lot of times is where we have penetrations coming through the roof. That's our plumbing vents, our exhaust vents, our roof vents, things of that nature. In and around the plumbing vents where the piping comes out of the roof, there's a rubber boot that goes around that vent. And over time, that rubber cracks. And so as you have a pipe coming out of the roof and you have a rubber vent at below the base of that, if that starts cracking, water could theoretically run down the side of the pipe and run into the attic area there. So sometimes we cannot see that, sometimes maybe until we're actually in the attic area. So the older that the roof is in appearance and or age-wise, whether it appears old or just it is old, we really start looking for those types of areas where we may have penetration problems. And if that's the case, then we see that, then we're called to have that roof vent, that boot replaced to keep the water out of the attic area. So that's what we're kind of looking for on the roof surfaces. The other things with roofs that we're looking for are the flashings that come off of the roof. So the flashings are the metal portions of the roof where when you have a pitched roof, a lot of times you'll see flashing up under the edge of what's called your fascia board, which is the decorative trim board on the outside of the roof edge. And you'll see a flashing up there, and basically that's a drip edge type of flashing. What it does, that prevents water from the roof of wicking back underneath of the shingles, and so then it gets back into your soffit areas. So you'll typically see flashing down the sides. You'll also see where the roof comes down, and whether it's a pitched roof and it meets your gutter system, you like to see some type of flashing there as well. Also, your roof surfaces should go over approximately 1 to 2 inches over the edge of the roof, so you have water drainage down into your gutters. It's imperative for that flashing there again, especially down at the end where that gutter system is, to keep that wicking or keep that water from rolling back up underneath of there, because once it starts rolling under there, it's got a channel created, and then it'll get back into your edges of your soffit areas. And so we see that quite prevalently in areas, and we'll look up underneath of those soffits and we'll see where that water's actually been penetrating up underneath of there. When that starts occurring, do not be surprised when the roofer tells you he cannot just replace 2 to 3 feet of the roof from the edge where the gutters are just to that section and take out that soffit area that's deteriorated. They typically will not warrant their work because of that. They will want to take it all the way back up to the top of the ridge. So as a homeowner, you'll be surprised and say, well, why can't you just do that little bit? And that roofer will probably tell you that they won't do it and they won't warranty their work because of that. It's very, very difficult to tie in those shingles to make that water flow over the top of the shingles. And so don't be surprised if they tell you that we don't, and that's not a standard practice, an industry practice of what's used out there for roofs. So those are the things that basically we're looking for on roof surfaces. The other part of the flashing issue that we talk to people about is your fascia boards that come down the edge of the decorative boards. When your roof surfaces comes to an end, typically your fascia boards will extend out about another 8 inches or 10 inches past there, so your gutters run into the fascia board. That end of the fascia board, that 8 to 10 inches of the end of the fascia board, we'd like to see those covered as well, whether with metal flashing or a piece of roofing shingle that basically covers the end. I refer to that as tabbing over the ends of the tails, the fascia board tail ends. Over time, because of the roof water coming down over the edge of that fascia board, if that's not covered, then the ends of that fascia board start deteriorating. Then you got to cut the fascia board off, remove that, and put a new fascia board on. So typically now with new construction, you're seeing these types of standard industry practices occur. Older homes, typically roofs, that have been there for a while, sometimes you won't see those types of flashing issues, and that's a preventative maintenance types of tips and techniques that we talk to people about maintaining that. A roof will discharge a lot of water, and so because of that, it's imperative where those drainage planes are going to, whether they're in the valleys, whether they're at the edges and things like that. We want to get the water from the roof into the gutter systems. So we'll touch a little bit also back onto the water issues that for a roof and people that are capturing rainwater off of the roof, basically used for gardens and that type of thing. We are seeing that people are using, 55-gallon drums, for example, and in the gutter downspouts, which are the spouts that come down from the roof, there's a trap device basically put in there to divert the water from the roof into that barrel, and then you can use that basically for irrigation of your vegetables and that type of thing. So with that being said, with all these different types of compounds, I mentioned earlier, you go to the store and you go down the chemical aisle section, which are massive, by the way, and you go down there and you start looking at and reading the labels. The average layperson, which I'd say probably 99% of us when we start trying to read chemical compositions and things like that, it's probably not chemicals that you want to put in your vegetables or things that you're going to be eating or ingesting into your system. The reason I mentioned vinegar is that vinegar is very neutral in its acidity and other characteristics that it has, and it's not theoretically going to hurt you, right? It's not got the chemical composition that most things have to hurt you. So therefore, back again to the vinegar issue. If you're using rainwater, probably the best thing to do with the roof is not put soap and bleach and powders and granulization of chemicals that you can't read the names of. Basically just use simple white vinegar. So that's probably not going to hurt you, and it's probably going to be good for your garden as well.